Okay. Well, welcome back. Okay. Here we're at part 3 of our basic firearm safety series. In part 3, we're going to cover the single action autoloading pistol. Now, an autoloading pistol is defined as a type of firearm where the energy of the fired cartridge is used to operate the action. So when you fire the cartridge in this particular handgun, all right, that energy is being used to eject the empty case of the fired round and strip a fresh round from a box called a magazine into the chamber to be fired again when you pull the trigger. Okay, and this basic type of action was invented in the late 1880s by a man named Hugo Borchardt, but that's nonetheless, that's just a historical footnote. Okay, what we're going to do today is we're going to go over the parts of the single action autoloading pistol. Okay, in this particular handgun here, this is a 1911 Colt 45 Auto. This was a military issue. This was used by the United States Army from before World War I all the way up into the 1980s before being replaced by the Beretta 9mm. And it served faithfully for many, many decades. It was considered to be a, quote, man stopper because it used a large, heavy caliber bullet. So it had a very good reputation in that respect. Okay, it's also very simple to operate. And again, like all firearms, it has your 3 basic components. You have your frame, barrel, and action. Now the barrel is encased in this part called the slide. This block of metal that goes back and forth over it is called the slide. This contains the barrel. Okay, now the frame itself is the part that I'm holding here. This is your grip frame. This is your trigger. Okay, here's your, on this thing here, it has what is called a magazine release because the cartridges are held in a vertical column in a thing called a magazine. This particular device has a spring-loaded feeding device, and you would take your cartridges and you would push them in and all the way to the rear. So that's what it looks like. All right, so I'm gonna particularly load this up. I'm gonna put it aside because I still want to go over the attributes of the single action auto-loading pistol. Okay, now this particular model here, it holds 7 shots in a magazine and 1 in the chamber, so you could hold 8 shots in this particular firearm, and that was an advantage. You would have generally 8 shots versus 5 to 6 of a revolver. So again, you have on the slide portion, this part that moves back and forth, you have your front sight and rear sight. You also have here, and I'm gonna just show it from this particular angle here. All right, what you have here is you have your slide release. Okay, to release the slide forward, you would push this lever down. Okay, you have again your magazine release, which releases the magazine. You also have your safety, which minimizes the chances of a discharge. What it does is it prevents the trigger from being released. I can push it down, but yet it still won't because you have another safety. It's called a grip safety. This grip safety has to be pressed in order for it to operate. Okay. Now, a reason for this is because when this firearm was invented, you still had soldiers on horseback, and they found out that having this grip safety aided in not having the soldier blow a hole in his leg, or probably to the Army, more importantly, not kill a horse that costs money. Hate to say it that way, but it might be some truth to it. Now, again, single action autoloading pistol, the trigger performs one function. It releases the hammer. So when I grip it properly and I have the safety down and I squeeze the trigger, the hammer will release and it will fire a cartridge. Okay, the firing pin inside will strike the primer of the cartridge, igniting the powder, which will push the bullet down, and then some of that energy is going to be used to force back the slide. Okay, and it will strip a fresh round to be fired again. So I can continue to fire up to 8, until I'm empty. Basically, it's 8 shots. Okay, but again, the trigger performs one function. I can pull on this thing all day long. I have to have the camera cocked back all the way. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put my hearing protection on, and I'm going to demonstrate how this particular firearm works. Okay, and as I'm shooting this, keep this in mind. This particular handgun that I'm shooting is about 110 years old. And you want to know something? it still works. I wish somebody could make a car like that. Now, to operate this firearm, I'm going to take, since I'm right-handed, I'm going to take my shooting hand, finger out of the trigger. Remember our basic rules of safety. I'm going to take my magazine. I'm going to insert it into the well of the firearm. This is where the magazine is inserted. I'm going to pop it in, and when I hear it click, I know it's in place. I'm going to take my non-shooting hand. I'm going to grasp the grooves on the back of the slide, pull all the way to the rear, and release. I'm going to put the safety on. This firearm is now loaded. It's cocked and locked. It's condition 1. All I have to do is wipe that safety down, and I'm ready to shoot. Okay? And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to fire 7 shots into that particular target. Now, I'm just going to do it off of a rest here, and then we'll go check it out. All right? Going to commence firing. Oh, we had a failure to lock the slide open on the last shot. Normally at the end of the shot, this slide will be held open, and then you can drop the magazine, and then you'll be ready for it to load a fresh magazine to shoot. Let's just take a quick look. Now, I noticed that it doesn't seem to be too accurate, but I want you to understand something. This particular firearm, okay, was designed for combat, okay? As long as you could hit a man-sized target at 21 feet, the Army was happy. So we just have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, we got 5 shots there. And there was a couple flyers. But again, for the purposes of combat, that was considered acceptable because it was considered to be a, we could call a last-ditch weapon, for lack of a better term. All right? So again, the single-action autoloading pistol is one where the trigger performs one function, okay? It releases the hammer, okay? And also one of the other things that the 1911 style firearm is notorious for, because of the grip safety and the fact that this trigger is cocked back at each time that the trigger is pulled, because this slide goes back and forth every shot. It also can bite you. All right. Now, a dovetail safety would be in order. That's a custom option. But again, this was your standard military handgun for 75 years or more. Okay. So on that note, we're going to go on to part 4, which will be the double action autoloading pistol. And again, that'll be an interesting thing to go over.